Die, Yenu, 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 die, Yenu. Die, Yenu, 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 die, Yenu. Die, Yenu, 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 die, Yenu. Die, Yenu, 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 die, Yenu.
Chag Sameach, it's so wonderful to see all of you here tonight over Zoom for our community Seder. So we're going to start off with just a quick moment in gallery view so you can wave hello and Chag Sameach, happy Passover to your friends. And throughout our Seder tonight, we'll need a lot of volunteers to read things in English. If you feel up to chanting something in Hebrew, like the 4 questions, you can always send me a message to let me know that you're interested in volunteering. There's also a button you can press to raise your hand. It will put a little blue hand up if you want to show that you're ready to volunteer. Or you can just kind of wave your hand at the screen and raise your hand old-fashioned style to get our attention and let us know that you'd love to be a volunteer tonight. So we'll start with our first slide. And thumbs up if you can see the slideshow. Everyone good? There's 2 settings. You can have it on gallery view where you see everyone in a really small square, or you can put it on speaker view where you'll see the speaker and the slide. So hopefully you have yours set on speaker view for now so that you can see all the words on our slideshow. Beginning with intention. Tonight we gather with our Orami family to recount our people's miraculous journey from slavery to freedom. For 3,000 years, each generation has taught this story to the next, using symbolic foods, festive songs, and thoughtful questions. Our sacred textbook tonight, the Haggadah, teaches us that the ultimate purpose of the Seder is for each individual in every generation to feel as though they had personally gone out of Egypt. As we eat, sing, and ask questions tonight, we are reminded of the ultimate question of Passover. What will we do with these memories of slavery? Will we shrug them off with indifference? Will we use them to fuel our anger over injustices? Or will we use them to develop empathy for others? As free people, the choice is ours. It is up to us, the next generation, to decide. So we want to have an interactive experience tonight, and we're going to start with a quick scavenger hunt. So if you have anything relatively near you that you could say represents oppression in some way, I invite you to take about 30 seconds. Maybe you have a stapler that you hate using at work, right? Whatever it is that signifies oppression to you, find that object, and we're going to ask a few people to share.
Bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if you'd like to be spotlighted to share what object you've chosen and to explain a little bit about how that symbolizes oppression for you, just wave your hand. Yeah. Oh, then Erica's family. Okay, we have the Napolitano family. Are you raising your hands? Well, ask, we have a wonderful guy named Michael who is helping us with our Zoom Seder tonight. So Michael can spotlight you, the Napolitano family, if you'd like to share the object you have chosen to represent oppression.
Mine did matzah.
You did matzah?
Uh-huh.
Excellent. That is such a great symbol of oppression, right? We call that the bread of affliction, or we use an Aramaic phrase, halachma anya, right? The bread of affliction. Excellent. And I love how traditional that symbol is. Did anyone come up with a more modern symbol? So it looks like Sarah Heifetz's family has a wonderful object to share with us. So,
Read it. It says, hang on. It says, and family detention.
Do you remember what that's about?
No.
Do you remember what they were doing to people who wanted to cross the border and come into this country? Where were they putting them?
And yeah.
It was like jail, yeah. So were these people oppressed, maybe?
Sorry.
So excellent. I love that modern example, right? That we talk about this story from thousands of years ago, but we don't want it to just be, oh, isn't that an interesting story? This is a story that becomes a part of what it is to be Jewish. We take that message of recognizing oppression in whatever form it occurs, and then standing up to the source of that oppression, whether that's Pharaoh or anyone else who is creating misery and suffering for other people. So that could be children in cages, that could be the Israelites in Egypt, it could be many different things. Do we have one last volunteer who's found something that symbolizes oppression? So Maggie and Sarah?
Yeah, I just grabbed my checkbook because I feel like oftentimes we are imprisoned by money and just kind of feel like we're working to pay rent or mortgage or something. So money.
Love the symbolism, right? So we had our first symbol of oppression was matzah, and we describe the matzah in different ways. Sometimes we call it the bread of affliction, but in some ways it's also the bread of freedom, right? That it was the bread that was eaten as they were fleeing. They didn't have time for the dough to rise. So the same thing can be true of other symbols like money, right? Money can be a tool to do incredible things, to feed the hungry, to build hospitals, but it can also be a source of oppression, right? When you have very limited funds, you have very limited access to basic needs. So I love that symbol. Russ, did you have a symbol you wanted to share? Make sure you unmute.
We have matzah from Israel.
Awesome. So two types of matzah, and very, very special matzah coming from the land of Israel, right? Where our ancestors journeyed to when they had the chance to be free. So now we'll move on to our next question for the scavenger hunt. We have talked about symbols of oppression, but the Passover Seder is about moving from oppression to freedom. So now, very quickly, if you can find a symbol of freedom near you and be prepared to share why that object symbolizes freedom to you. It looks like Stan and Eileen have something they'd like to share.
Yes, I don't know if you can see this. It's a okay. It's a piece of costume jewelry that my mother brought with her from Germany. When she came here in 1937, and the immigration deported her, but she went to Havana and was eventually able to come back to the U.S.
What it is a big spider. It's a brooch. A brooch.
Very cool, right? That spider has legs, right? A way to travel from one continent to another, escape persecution, and enjoy freedom. Julie, did you have your hand up? Do you have an object you'd like to share for freedom? And make sure you're unmuted.
Yeah, remove yourself, Stan.
Okay. Hello. This is a Hamsa, and my sister sent me it from Israel. She lives there. And what I like about it is it's about a home blessing and be able to have a home after you've been fleeing and you haven't really had a country is a blessing, and that's freedom.
Love it. Bruce Gould, you have something you'd like to share?
I don't know if you'll be able to see this.
The vaccine button.
Yes.
They're pinned.
It gives us freedom to be with our friends soon, I hope.
So we've definitely had a unique experience of Passover the past 2 years, right? Of understanding plagues on a new level, of understanding feeling that constriction, right? We talk about Egypt being this narrow place where the Jews were confined and didn't have the ability to just go out and do what they wanted. So I love that vaccine or the sticker or button kind of showing that you've gotten your vaccine as a symbol of freedom. And let's see, Linda Kessler, and after Linda, Sarah Heifetz again.
Freedom for me is having this phone that I can still see all of my friends that I'm missing and see all of you and still go to school on the phone. So that is really freedom. If I didn't have that, if it was 20, 30 years ago, this would have been a horrible year.
So I love that symbol, right? The technology we use to connect to others. Sarah Heifetz?
Okay. This symbolizes the freedom of the LGBTQ service community.
And what freedoms does it represent?
It represents the freedom of being lesbian, gay, or whatever.
So being the freedom to be who you are.
Yeah, and loving who you are.
And
Live, excellent, love it. We have Zina on Yakov's iPad.
Freedom for me, I don't know if you can see, to have a normal president in the White House and a picture of Biden with dogs.
So
Here,
freedom,
here.
right?
Yay.
We have elections where we can choose freely who we would like our leaders to be, right?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And then we had Sean wanted to share, or Shoshana.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I'm going to make everybody uncomfortable, so apologies in advance.
Well, the Seder's about being uncomfortable, right? Bring the affliction.
My symbol of freedom is a mirror, because my ancestors were owned by other people, and but today we're not. There's still a long way to go, but actually having our own personhood means a lot. So literal freedom is my thing.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's a really important thing to remember tonight as we talk about the story of slavery, right? Sometimes as Jews, we can think, oh, we understand slavery because of this story of slavery that's so important in our spiritual tradition. But the story is thousands of years old, and we've had a long time to recover from that oppression. And there are many people who are enslaved today around the world with human trafficking. There are people whose grandparents or great-grandparents remember what it was to live under slavery and other forms of oppression that we haven't personally experienced. So it's really important to think about that historical reality, which wasn't really that long ago. Sterling and then David Dorfman. So first Sterling. Make sure you're unmuted.
Yes. For me, creative freedom is really.
Oh, make sure you're unmuted.
creative freedom, symbolized by these canvas panels. But it's really important for me to be able to express myself, especially because I grew up in a fairly conservative church that had like one right way of thinking.
So I love that symbol, right? You could kind of compare our Seder plate to a canvas in a way that we decorate it with symbols, and art is often about symbolism and conveying some kind of emotion or experience and having that creative expression. Yeah, David Dorfman, did you still have an object you'd like to share? And make sure you're unmuted.
These are CDs or maybe DVDs, I'm not sure, but they have the naturalization documents for my Bubby and Zadie. When they came to this country in 1922, they were fleeing the oppression of the communists in the Ukraine. And they were fleeing for their lives because capitalists were being shot. So this was their fleeing not across the Sea of Reeds, but fleeing across the ocean. And they became American citizens.
So I love that, right? We talk a lot about America being the land of the free, and that's an ideal that we're striving for. We know that for many of us, we or our ancestors came to America from another place where there was political persecution, religious persecution, and some people came to America not pursuing their freedom, but as people who were taken captive, right? So we have all sorts of different people now living in America with different experiences of, you know, what does America mean in relation to freedom? So I love that for your grandparents, that those documents, right, that you now have in digital format, that can remind you of the gift of freedom that many people have enjoyed. And we can think about how we can extend that freedom to everyone, and not just us and our own families. So the last bit in our scavenger hunt is finding your favorite Jewish heirloom. So that could be something that was passed down from your parents or grandparents, or if your parents or grandparents were not connected to Judaism, but a friend gave you a gift, or you bought something that you want to pass on to someone as an heirloom, whether it's your own children in the future or a friend who you know will cherish that object. I invite you to bring that object to share. So it looks like we have Kayazo Heifetz family wants to share an object.
What is it? It's this book. It's the Passover book that
It's a Passover Haggadah that I grew up with that still has my mother's handwriting in it in places where she wrote where my brother, who's also passed away, would read and things like that. So it's super meaningful to me to be able to have that in our home now.
I was just like, oh, I know it.
That's wonderful. I love that history and those memories within the book. Kevin and Maddie?
Yeah, I have, just to share, I have some Hebrew, learning Hebrew books that I inherited from my grandfather. He passed away this last year, but he shared with me a bunch of his books that he had when he was learning Hebrew, because he learned that I was also in the intro Hebrew class at Ormi.
That's awesome. And I think that's it's really tiny on my screen. Does it say Ivrit Shalav Aleph on the cover?
It's all in Hebrew on the cover. Let me hold it up closer, you can see.
Yep. That's actually the very first Hebrew textbook that I learned from, because I wanted to know what Hebrew words actually meant. So I knew how to pronounce the letters, but it was gibberish to me until I learned about the root system. So I love that your grandfather had that book and shared that gift with you. Aaron and then Judy.
So I guess books are a theme. I've got my grandmother's cookbook from Jewish Cooking for the Contemporary Kitchen from Temple Beth Shalom in Park Ridge, New Jersey from 1984. It's my favorite thing.
Awesome. And I love that you have a cookbook, because the Seder is really about sharing memories from one generation to the next using food, right? So much of the Seder is a book, the Haggadah, and so much of the Seder is the food, right? We're eating history in a way. So Judy?
This is a Siddur that I'm not sure how old it is, but it's for all the daily prayers. And my family was Orthodox, and I'm not sure whether it was from I think it was from my mother's side of the family, but you can see it's kind of ragged and whatever because it was used every day, and the cover is metal. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. And I just, it just means a lot. And so it sits on my mantle because it just means a lot.
I love that heirloom as well, right? For some people, it's a Siddur, a prayer book. For some people, their Seder plate is a way to show, to put extra beauty into Jewish ritual and observance, that you can have such a beautifully decorated prayer book cover or a very special Seder plate. Ed Kaufman, did you still want to share? Make sure you're unmuted.
I don't know if people can see this book. It is a book that I got from Eva Kaur, who I met personally at the Candles Museum in Evansville, Indiana. She and her sister escaped the Holocaust. They were both twins that were medical experimentation by Mengele. And so not only did she escape the Holocaust, she was on the last boat out of Romania to go into Israel. So she escaped communist Romania, then got drafted into the Israeli army, and eventually made it to the United States. And so, I mean, she has such an incredible story of surviving the Holocaust. And I have a copy that is signed of her book that is signed by her.
That's awesome. And I think a lot of the symbols we have of Passover are ultimately symbols of survival, right? We're helping this story to survive. We're celebrating the survival of our people, despite many instances and periods of oppression and struggle, that we've got that resilience and we come together as a community and make it through. And then we'll do two more, because we do need to start our actual Seder, but I love how interactive this is. So Marilyn and Joel. Make sure you're unmuted and nice and loud.
This is a prayer book from 1901. My grand uncle, Joel Gutman, who I am his namesake. And in the Chumash is a reserved seat ticket for his wife in England. And she paid £2
to go to High Holy Days.
To go to High Holidays.
Dated 1901.
What's that with inflation now?
Right.
This is written in Hebrew and in German. Fraktur, which is High German.
Awesome. So I love that you've got this book and this ticket, right, showing participation in Jewish communal life. And that even your name is an heirloom in a way, right? And a message of survival and resilience. So last, Lori and John Weinberg.
Okay, well, we have two pictures of our object. Our object is not right here, but there's a picture of our wedding many years ago, and a picture of our daughter's wedding. The chuppah is the same, and the chuppah was woven by Lori's mother for our wedding, and so that's become a very, who herself was not Jewish, but she did the research and made the piece, and it's become important to our family. Other members of our extended family have used it also, making a strong connection across the generations.
That's incredible. And I love that this important heirloom has involvement from non-Jewish family members as well, right? When we tell the story of the Exodus, we talk not only about the Israelites who left Egypt, but this mixed multitude. So Jews are not the only people that have known oppression. There were other people who, when they had the chance to leave Egypt, they wanted to go. So non-Jewish family and friends have always been an important part of our community. And I love that you have family members who took the time to research, what is a chuppah? What are the kind of constraints that need to go into the creation of this beautiful piece? And you've been able to pass it down from generation to generation. That's wonderful. All right, so we will continue with our Seder / begin it. As we begin our Seder proper with a symbol of joy. So for many people, that symbol takes the form of a glass of wine. Those who do not derive joy from wine may imbibe another beverage that gladdens one's heart or taste buds. So whether you just don't like wine, or the alcohol is not a source of joy in your life, it could be a source of oppression for some people. If you have water, any other beverage, we're going to have 4 glasses of that beverage. And each of these 4 glasses corresponds to an important promise of freedom in the Torah. The first promise is, I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. The second promise we remember is, I will rescue you from their slavery. Third promise, I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. And the fourth promise, I will take you as my people and be yours as your God. So kind of getting back to the chuppah, some marital imagery of having that covenant, that relationship that's cherished. So as we recall these 4 promises, we relive that joy that each promise evoked in our ancestors. So if you have a cup of grape juice, wine, or any other beverage you like, we'll say the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. L'chaim. L'chaim. And I'd like to invite Alan Arkava to read our next reading.
Tonight, we are transported to the emotional world of our ancestors as they celebrated an end to sorrow and suffering and the beginning of a new life as free people. We recall that this joyous transformation took place in the spring when signs of new life were blossoming all around them.
Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter's past and the rain is gone. The flowers appear on earth, the time of singing is come, and the voice of the turtle is heard. The fig tree bringeth forth her green figs, and the vines in blossom bring forth their fragrance. Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away.
Beautifully read, thank you. So now we take a green vegetable like parsley. Some people might use celery. Some even use potatoes, right? Anything that you might see sprouting up around you in the spring as a symbol of both spring and a new life. And we dip it in a symbol of the life that we have left behind. So if you have some salt water, this symbol of salt water reminds us of the tears that our ancestors cried while they suffered under slavery. And we'll dip greens into salt water and say the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri ha'adamah. I'd like to invite David Dorfman to read the next reading.
That we find our spring selves again, shed the thick protective layers of winter that shield but separate us from the world out there. We sit at the Seder table, tired, yes, from all the work of preparation, but hoping in spirit to be refreshed. Yes, sitting at the Seder table, we encounter our younger selves, wide-eyed, asking questions. We become each year once again the 4 sons or daughters, childlike, springlike, ready each year once again to go out from Egypt with nothing but a pack on our back, ready to walk once again out into the wilderness in search of our freedom and our God.
Beautifully read, thank you. So now, if you have 3 pieces of matzah handy, there's a custom to take the middle matzah and to break it in half to create an afikomen, the most significant piece of matzah tonight. So when you break it, one's going to look a little bit bigger. The bigger one will be your afikomen. And if you have a napkin, you can put it in your napkin, especially if you have someone there in your home to help find it. Or some people have a special afikomen bag that you can place your afikomen in for later. And would anyone like to read about the bread of affliction? So Judy, would you like to hold up a piece of matzah and read? Make sure to unmute.
That's what I'm doing. The bread of affliction. This is the bread of affliction, which our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Let all who are hungry come and eat with us. Let all who are in need of spiritual nourishment come and celebrate Passover. Today, we are here. Next year, in the land of Israel. Today, we are slaves. Next year, we will be free.
Beautiful. Thank you. Now we continue with the 4 questions. First, we'll sing them together in Hebrew. I'm sure that everyone is the youngest in some room, so we'll all be the youngest together. And then I'll ask for some volunteers, especially if you're under the age of 13 and you'd like to read in English later. Let me know, and you can read the 4 questions in English. Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol haleilot, mikol haleilot, shebechol haleilot, anu ochlim chametz umatzah, chametz umatzah. Halayla hazeh, kulo matzah. Halayla hazeh, kulo matzah. Shebechol halelot, anu ochlim she'ayirakot, she'ayirakot. Halayla hazeh, maror, maror. Halayla hazeh, maror, maror. Shebechol halelot, ein anu matbilin, afilu ba'am echad, afilu ba'am echad. Halayla hazeh, shetei be'amim. Halayla hazeh, shetei be'amim. Shebechol halelot, anu ochlim, ben yoshvin u'ben mesubin, ben yoshvin u'ben mesubin. Halayla hazeh, kulanu mesubin. Halayla hazeh, kulanu Mesubi. Now, is there any chance we could get a volunteer from the Napolitano family? We are young readers to read the 4 questions in English. Awesome. Cameron?
Why is this night different from all other nights? On all other nights, we can eat leavened breads or matzah, but on this night, only matzah.
And do you want to read one more question?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Why is all the other nights, on the other nights we can eat all kinds of vegetables, but on this night only bitter herbs?
Excellent. And let's see, is Jack here?
I'm here.
Yes, he's here.
Okay, so if we can spotlight Jacqueline. Jack, go. Great job, Cameron. Now, Jack.
Why is this night different from all other nights? On all other nights, we don't normally dip our food even once, but on this night, we dip it twice.
Okay.
Why is this night different from all other nights? On all other nights, we can eat sitting up or reclining, but on this night, we all recline.
Excellent job, Jack and Cameron, reading the 4 questions tonight. So the number 4 comes up quite a bit. We've talked about the 4 promises, right, that we celebrate with each cup of wine or grape juice. And we've also got the 4 questions and the 4 children. So 4 times. 4 times the Torah tells us, teach your children about the Exodus from Egypt. 4 times we are reminded, and you shall tell your child on that day. From this, the sages or ancient rabbis infer that there are 4 kinds of people. And so at our Seder, we speak of children who are wise and those who reject our rituals and traditions, children who are simple, and those who do not know how to ask. And we are taught to respond to them in different ways according to their questions, their situations, and their needs. So can I get a volunteer to read this poem about 4 different types of people having conversations about treats? Yeah, the Kayazo Heifetz family. Luna?
Four talked about the pine tree. One defined it by genius species and variety. One assessed its disadvantages for the lumber industry. One quoted poems about pine trees in many languages. One took root, stretched out branches, and rest.
Beautifully read, Luna. Thank you. So you have a picture here of the 4 children known in Hebrew as Chacham, Rasha, Tam, and She'eno Yodea Lishbol. There's different ways to translate them, but we'll move forward and see the Chacham, the wise child. So if you're feeling wise tonight, please volunteer to read the wise child. And you don't have to feel all that wise if you just want to.
You just feel a little wise.
Just a little wise, just a little stitious. Emily. Make sure you're unmuted.
The wise child asks, what is the meaning of all? This is in the way here. what is the meaning of all of these rules? I want to know all of the details. This child is proud to be a Jew and is interested in sharing experiences that are important to Jews. We answer this child by teaching them all the rules of Passover.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Emily. And the wicked child, anyone feeling a bit wicked tonight? Ed? Ed Cochran?
I'll take the bullet.
Awesome. It's like playing Haman and Purim. Yeah.
The wicked child asks, "Why do you bother with all these pointless rituals?" The child does not try to understand the beauty of our tradition and even mocks those who find it meaningful. We answer this child by saying, "I'm sorry you feel disconnected from your heritage. Please do not disparage those who cherish this connection."
Thank you, Ed. And now the simple child who likes to keep it simple. Marilyn and Joel.
Okay. Well, the simple child asks, "What's this?" This child needs to have the most important parts of the story explained to them in a clear and simple way. We answer this child by saying, "We're doing all of these things tonight to celebrate when God freed us from slavery long ago."
Excellent. And then our child who does not know enough to ask, Lori and John, or John Weinberg. And make sure you unmute and turn your camera on, because you're really good at being the child who doesn't ask when you're on mute.
Playing tricks.
For the child who does not know enough to ask, we start from the beginning to build their knowledge and connection to the Exodus. Even if they are not saying much, we know that they are absorbing the essence of Passover while celebrating it in a supportive community.
Excellent. Thank you.
You can mute it now.
So now that we've talked about the 4 different children, we'll do a quick poll and it will pop up in just a moment. You can vote. Which of the 4 children do you find the most relatable? The wise child, the wicked child, the simple child, or the child who does not know enough to ask? All right, so we've got about a 70-something% participation in voting. That's pretty good. Can we get to the 80s or 90s? Got to 80%. All right, I think 82% is really good. We could get all Americans to vote at that level. That would be great as well. So it looks like most people can relate to the wise child. 42% have been to this rodeo before, right? You know the deal, you know the story, you know the details, and you want to know even more of those details. That's awesome. Then our next biggest group are people who relate to the child who does not know enough to ask. So we've created this community Seder to have space for both those who've been here, done that, and still want to learn more, as well as people who might be at their very first Seder, or maybe they're the second Seder, but it's been a few decades since the last time they've been to a Seder. So it's okay to just observe and kind of pick up things along the way. We've got 18% high, right? A simple child, right? Keeping it simple, that's all we have to do, cover the basics of the Exodus story. And then we also have some people who relate to the wicked child, right? Who are wondering, you know, what is the meaning of these rituals? Are they pointless that we just do it again and again and again? So I invite you to keep that question and to see if you can find your own answer. Is there some meaning that we can find as a community doing these rituals again and again, year after year? What meaning can be found in them? And I thank you for being here, even if you have that reluctance within you. So now we continue with the core of the Passover story, which is telling the story. Do we have any people maybe with theater backgrounds or who just like to read dramatically who'd like to help us tell this story tonight?
Rabbi Ahuva, we can do it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah and Maggie.
You go first.
Okay. Long ago, our ancestor Jacob moved his family from the land of Canaan to the land of Egypt in order to find food during a famine. In those days, our ancestors were called Hebrews. The Hebrews were a relatively small group when they arrived in Egypt.
Jacob's son, Joseph, was a handsome and intelligent man. He ended up serving as a trusted minister to the Pharaoh, or ruler over Egypt. Back then was a good time for the Hebrews. They were happy and grew in numbers.
But then many years passed, and a new Pharaoh came to power. This new Pharaoh did not know anything about Joseph or how lovely the Hebrew people were. He saw the Hebrews as outsiders who could potentially side with Egypt's enemies in a time of war.
So the Pharaoh tried to take away all of their power and freedom and ordered that the Hebrew people become slaves. They were forced to work day and night, making bricks and building cities for the Egyptians.
It was a terrible time for the Jewish people. The Hebrews cried out to God and prayed that one day they would be free. God heard their cries and punished Pharaoh as well as other cruel Egyptians with 10 plagues.
None of which were COVID.
None. So as we remember these 10 plagues, we are going to remove 10 drops of wine from our cup, and each drop of wine that we spill is a prayer to end the plagues that human beings continue to bring upon one another. So if you'd like to use your pinky and take, some people put each drop on a plate or a napkin. So I invite you, as I say the Hebrew word for each plague, to read the English translation. So we have dam, blood, Spardeia, frogs, kinim, lice, arov, wild beasts, dever, cattle plague, shchin, boils, barad, hail, arbe, locust, choshech, darkness, and makat bechorot, the slaying of the firstborn. And can I get a volunteer to read this poem, this modern poem about the 10 plagues today? Jack, you raising your hand? Jacqueline?
Okay, go. Hold on. Passover. Far from Egypt, I've sighted blood. I've heard throaty mating of frogs. My city knows burnt animals loose in hallways, boils, sickness, hails. In a certain suburban gardens, 17-year locusts ride from their heavy bed. A small explosion of sod. Darkness of a new spirit. My newsprint. Son, my son.
Wonderfully read. Thank you. So now, if you've got a little bit of a silly side or like to emote a little bit or just love charades at game night, we're going to do a quick version of plague charades. So if you're interested, use the chat to send me a message saying you'd like to be one of our plague demonstrators. And then we'll invite everyone else to either type in the chat or you can unmute yourself and call out which plague you think the person is acting out. So send me a private chat if you would like to be one of our charade actors today. And you don't have to be amazing at it. Sometimes it's better that way. Okay, so we're going to spotlight Jacqueline for one of our plagues. And everyone else will guess which plague he's acting out. Any guesses? You want to unmute and shout out which plague he?
Locust.
Frog.
Frog.
Oh,
Frog.
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 Ready?
Frogs hopping everywhere.
Ready?
I can hear the ribbon.
Love it.
Ready?
Okay.
Ready?
Okay, I think they're done.
In case there was any questions.
Ready.
Okay, and I will message our next volunteer. Okay, so Julie is going to act out our next plague.
All right. What is the next plague?
I messaged you in a private chat.
Oh, okay. Wait. Oh.
Any guesses which plague this is?
Life.
Excellent. Incredible acting skills. We've got lots of Ormians who need some Oscars. And then we have one last plague. I'll call on Liam, who is under Cedar's New Galaxy tablet.
Slaying of the firstborn.
Death of the firstborn.
Yeah. Slaying of the firstborn.
All right, very good. Way to use your brother as a prop. Even better when you're twins and there's very little time in between who's the firstborn and who's second. All right, so we'll continue with our story. Do we have another volunteer reader who'd like to tell us what happens next in this epic saga? Sterling?
After all 10 plagues, the Pharaoh was finally convinced that the Hebrew people had to be freed from slavery, and he allowed them to leave Egypt. The Hebrews started walking towards their homeland, excited to finally be free. But then the Pharaoh changed his mind again. He sent his army to find the Hebrews and bring them back to slavery. The Hebrews had already traveled quite a distance. They had made it to close to where Egypt met the sea. As they approached the sea, the Hebrews heard the rumbling of Egyptian chariots. The Hebrews looked behind them. The Egyptian army was getting closer. The Hebrews looked in front of them. The sea was roaring with powerful waves crashing into one another. There was nowhere to go. What were they going to do? Just when the Egyptians were about to catch up to the Hebrews and take them back into slavery, God told Moses to lift up his staff, and the waters of the sea parted miraculously, revealing dry land that the Hebrews could walk across to safety and freedom. Instead of letting the Hebrews go, the Egyptians continued to chase them. But after the last Hebrew made it safely to the other side, the sea began to revert to its normal state. The waters closed in, drowning the Egyptian soldiers and their heavy chariots.
Beautifully read, thank you. So as we remember the story, we also remember the humanity of the Egyptians. Our sages taught at the very hour that the Egyptians were drowning, the angels wanted to sing before the Holy One. And God said to them, "While my children are drowning in the sea, you angels would sing joyful songs in my presence." Our history moves from slavery toward freedom. Our narration begins with degradation and rises to dignity. Our service opens with the rule of evil and advances toward the realm of God's peace and compassion. Can I get a volunteer to read this gratitude reading? Kuyazo Heifetz family? Sarah? Or Carlos?
Passover is a time to express gratitude. We're grateful that we are no longer enslaved in Egypt. We're grateful for the opportunity to be free and to rest each week on Shabbat. We're grateful to be Jewish and to have the Torah to guide us throughout our lives. We express gratitude for each of these blessings as we sing the song of Dayenu.
All right, so you probably heard that song as you came into our Zoom meeting earlier. We're going to sing that again together. Ilu hotzi anu mi Mitzrayim anu mi Mitzrayim dayenu 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 Ilu natan lanu et Shabbat natan lanu et Shabbat dayenu. Everybody, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Last verse. Ilu natan lanu et Torah natan lanu et Torah dayenu. Last time with everything you've got. Dayenu, dayenu, beautifully sung. So Dayenu means it would have been enough. So we have two discussion questions. The first one is, what are you grateful for tonight? We talked about gratitude, and Dayenu is an expression for that gratitude. So if you'd like to unmute yourself and share what you are grateful for this year at Passover, and especially tonight.
Family.
Family, wonderful.
Health.
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 We're happy about our new house, getting settled in nicely. So definitely grateful for that.
COVID shots.
I'm grateful for moments like this where, despite not being able to be together in person, we're still finding so much joy in this community.
So grateful that I have gotten both of my vaccines, and a friend who had gotten both of his vaccines, a friend from high school, came over and we got to be mask free, and it was liberating.
Yeah. Taste of freedom and liberation. Our next question is, what would your Dayenu item be? So what is a Dayenu item? Basically, in other words, if this was the one thing you had, the one possession or abstract concept that if you had that one thing, you feel like Dayenu, that would be enough for me, that would be enough for us.
What does that do? Okay. Okay. I am grateful that we are both caregivers for our grandchild who is blossoming at 17 months old.
Wonderful. So having your granddaughter, that's Dayenu, all you really need. Yeah.
My new item would be art. You said abstract concepts are allowed, art.
Definitely. I know I couldn't ask that concept at Orme without allowing abstract concepts as well as concrete items. I love it. Anything else that you feel like if you just had that one thing, you would be satisfied deeply on a spiritual level?
To love.
Love.
Go ahead, you can say yours.
To love.
True love, right? It could be love with your family, your friends, any form of true love, a happy relationship. David Dorfman, did you want to share what your Dayenu item would be?
This congregation.
All right, David wins. No, just kidding. I love it. And Russ, would you like to share what your Dayenu item would be?
There are too many things.
So I think that's important to think about. We can have moments where one thing, whether that's love or community or art, can be all we need in that moment. But the truth is that as human beings, we'll always crave more, right? There's always kind of something else that we need. We think about our own needs for love and meaning and connection and food and shelter and healthcare and all of that. So we think about those needs for ourselves as well as every person around us who has those same needs. And we can work towards making sure that everyone has enough when we think about Dayenu. So thank you, Russ. We'll continue with our second cup of wine. So as we drink the second cup, we again express gratitude and joy over the second promise of freedom in the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Fine. Now it's time to get that matzah back out. We'll have two blessings over matzah during Passover. The first one's the regular blessing for any type of bread, and then the second blessing is specifically for eating matzah during Passover. So we'll sing the first one. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. And the second blessing before we take a bite. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat matzah. And now, if you have a Seder plate nearby or just a bucket of horseradish for who knows what reason, find some horseradish or whatever your bitter herb is. And if you're really brave, you can take it directly from a spoon, but most people put it on something else like matzah. So you can take another piece of matzah and put some of the bitter herb on it. And just like we have a blessing for eating matzah, we have a blessing for eating this bitter herb that reminds us of the bitterness of slavery. So we'll say that blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat maror. And a famous rabbi named Hillel, who has many things named after him, made a special sandwich that combines matzah, maror, the bitter herbs, and the ancient Pesach or lamb offering that the Jews would eat together in the temple in Jerusalem long ago. So today, I don't know how many people are having lamb for dinner tonight, but most of us have charoset as a Passover symbol now. So there's different recipes for charoset depending on where your ancestors come from. Here I have a kind of combination Ashkenazic Sephardic recipe. It's got the almonds for Sephardic identity and the apples for Ashkenazic charoset. So if you want to take a little bit of charoset and put it on top of your matzah with the bitter herbs and create your own Hillel sandwich. This begins where we would normally have our meal. And if you are starving, feel free to go ahead and just eat your dinner as we continue the Seder. But we're going to go ahead with the rest of the ritual. And for those who like to finish the ritual before having dinner, that's what we'll just go ahead and do. So normally during the meal is when I or volunteers from our Avodah committee would sneakily hide the afikomen somewhere in the sanctuary or me. Tonight, because we are gathering virtually rather than physically, we're going to do a virtual hunt for the afikomen, sort of Where's Waldo style. So Mike is going to show you Where's Waldo, where's the afikomen. And if you think you see it, you can put in the chat comment where you see the afikomen in this busy city setting. And be super specific.
Yeah. On the roof of the building.
So one of the buildings, right? We've got multiple buildings, but I'm seeing bottom left and on the roof of that building. So let's go to our next slide and see if we have those eagle eyes. Yes, we do, right? So there's our afikomen. Great job. I think all of us are going to get the trophy tonight because I'm a millennial and I believe we should all get trophies. All right. Next slide, we have our third cup of wine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Chaim. Can I get a volunteer to read about Elijah before we have Elijah's cup and special song? Jacob?
Known as a miracle worker, the prophet Elijah is legendary for acts of kindness and healing, and for raising up the poor and the weak. At the end of his days on earth, Elijah's disciple Elisha, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, had a vision.
Got it perfect.
Yeah, had a vision of Elijah carried aloft in a fiery chariot. Many are the folk tales of Elijah's return to earth to befriend and serve the sick, the helpless, and the suffering. These tales, in which the prophet often appears as a beggar, offered hope in the midst of poverty and persecution.
And do you want to read one more slide?
I would love to. These legends are often point to the messianic age, a future redemption, when the most difficult conflicts will be resolved. And indeed, Elijah is known as the forerunner of the Messiah, a messenger from God who inspires hope where there is grief and teaches humble faith where there is doubt and uncertainty. As we open our door to welcome Elijah, we pray that a time of joy and peace will soon arrive.
Thank you, Jacob. Beautifully read. Do we have any volunteers who can move their laptop or phone camera easily to show us an open front door? Okay, Lisa. So we're going to welcome Elijah into Lisa's home and through the power of Zoom also into all of our homes. So Elijah will be at our Seder. And Elijah doesn't go anywhere unless we sing his special theme song. So we're going to sing this song you may know from Havdalah or Passover Seder's past. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi, Bimhera V'Yameinu, Yavo Eleinu, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David. So we invite in Elijah to bring that time of peace within our homes and throughout the world. Thank you, Lisa, for opening the door for Elijah. Can I get a volunteer to read this next reading? Ed Kaufman?
While we are long for a better world, redemption is not yet complete. And so, recalling words that have shaped us as a people, we raise the fourth cup. With this cup, we accept the tasks of justice and tikkun that still await us. And we honor the purpose of the Jewish people to affirm our covenant with God, who freed us from slavery and opened the doorway of hope to all.
Thank you, Ed. So we lift our glasses for our fourth and final time, Seder. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Hi. The Seder for Pesach now comes to an end. Its customs enjoyed, all the rites fulfilled, each in its proper order, each in its sacred way. We have taken a spiritual journey tonight, from slavery to freedom and from suffering to joy. We pray that everyone still afflicted or oppressed will be able to make a similar journey and enjoy the same freedoms that we cherish. Embracing our history and affirming our hope, we offer a prayer, a Jewish prayer, and a prayer for all humanity. Lishana Haba'a B'Yerushalayim. Next year in Jerusalem, next year may everyone be free. And if you'd like to stick around for some Passover songs. So before we sing, actually, Rachel reminded me I'd love to get a picture of everyone. So if you want to hold up something like matzah, you can have an Orami community picture. And are you going to take a screenshot? So Rachel's on the screenshot.
Okay, everyone hold up your matzah, look in the camera, big smiles. 1, 2, 3, matzah! Thank you.
All right, thank you for reminding me. I totally forgot. Okay, so now we'll continue with some Passover songs. And we will start with one of the most famous songs called Chad Gadya. And I believe this is a favorite often requested by Stan. And we're going to do some modern lyrics that have a little more gentleness and kindness built in, because the actual song is a little brutal, right? It's a symbolic song about each empire that came in and conquered the land of Israel. So it's like you start with a little goat, right? Symbolizing the Jewish people. And then you have the Assyrians and the Babylonians come. So they're compared to like cats and dogs that just keep attacking each other until you get to the angel of death, right? So we're going to go with a kinder, gentler version of Chad Gadya. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. Then my father bought for 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. We'll just sing the last verse together. It's got a lot of words. Okay. Then came the Holy One, blessed be he who blessed the angel of light, who smiled at the butcher who fed the ox, that drank the water which quenched the fire, that warmed the stick that was touched by the dog, that licked the cat, that nuzzled the kid, that my father bought for 2 zuzim. Chad Gadya, Chad Gadya. All right, that was for you, Stan.
That's a better way to sing it.
What's your favorite? Does anyone have a favorite melody for Chad Gadya? So that one's like one of the most famous. I think I'll post in the Orami Facebook group another version I heard earlier that sounds a little more Middle Eastern in terms of the musical setting. And when I was in high school, I learned a different version that's kind of fun. A lot of people will sing it with little sound effects for each character. So the chorus that I'd learned in high school was Chad Gadya, ay, 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 bum, bum, ay, 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 Chad Gadya. and then like when you have the cat, you're like, meow, right? So it gets pretty crazy. They have and for the stick and the fire and the water and all that. But let's move on to our next Passover song, Who Knows One. So if anyone can read this tiny font and wants to do a challenge that my family always does, which is some people sing this song in Hebrew, but we're just going to read it all in English and see how far you can get using only one breath. So there are some humans that can do the entire 13 things in this list, but many people get about halfway through. So who maybe plays trumpet or has really good lungs and would like to be our first person to attempt Who Knows One in one breath? Okay, so we have Kayazo Haifetema. Yeah. And make sure you're unmuted so that we hear it all in one breath.
All right. Who knows 13? I know 13. 13 are God's attributes of mercy. 12 are the tribes of Israel. 8 are the stars in Joseph's dream. 10 are the commandments. 9 are the months before birth. 8 are the days to the Brit Milah. 7 are the days in a week. 6 are the orders of the Mishnah. 5 are the books of the Torah. 4 are the matriarchs. 3 are their forefathers. 2 are the tablets of the commandments. 1 is their God in heaven on earth.
That was amazing. I see Marilyn and Joel giving a really big round of applause. All right, I think I'll just say you won.
I agree.
Okay.
A theater degree has to be good for something. This is it.
Yeah. I love it. All right, so we'll move on to our next song that has more of a melody. This is one of my favorite songs that my family would sing for Passover. And it reminds us of kind of the cultural exchange that we've had in America, where we have this story that was kind of created by the Jewish people, became a part of the Christian Bible, and became especially significant to African Americans who felt like the Israelites, right? If there's any part of the Bible that they were given, right, by Christians, right, that they could really relate to, it was these Israelites enslaved and dealing with Pharaoh and craving freedom. So we have borrowed that song from that spiritual tradition, showing all these layers of cultural exchange and respect for one another's cultures. So please join me. When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Thus saith the Lord, bold Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn dead. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. As Israel stood by the waterside, let my people go. By God's command it did divide, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. I continue with our last song. So we celebrate Moses, and a lot of the Haggadah is not actually about Moses. So when the Haggadah was created, we wanted to celebrate kind of the spiritual aspects. And sometimes in modern understandings of it, we focus on the human element and how can people today bring that liberation. But the Haggadah is a little more focused on the divine intervention And so we don't overly highlight Moses too much, but when we do highlight Moses and male leadership, we also want to make sure that we're remembering that Moses was not the only important leader from that time. We think a lot about, especially his sister Miriam, who was a prophetess in her own right, and who was the one who led the Israelites in song and celebration and prayer once they made it across the water in those first steps to freedom. So Rachel has her guitar now, so we'll have a little musical accompaniment for Miriam's song. Women dancing with their timbrels, follow Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. And Miriam was a weaver of unique variety. The tapestry she wove was one which sang our history. With every strand and every thread she crafted her delight. A woman touched with spirit as she danced toward the light. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. When Miriam stood upon the shores and gazed across the sea, the wonder of this miracle she soon came to believe. Whoever thought the sea would part with an outstretched hand, and we would pass to freedom and march in the promised land. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. And Miriam the prophet took her timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her just as she had said. And Miriam raised her voice in song, she sang with praise and might. We just lived through a miracle, we're gonna dance tonight. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. So I want to say thank you to Rachel for providing that guitar music, and thank you to Michael Pacino, who's handling our Zoom tonight. An incredible job. Thank you to all of our volunteer readers. Thank you for being here tonight to create a sense of community, no matter what obstacles we're currently facing. And I invite you to take this message of Passover, right? Are you a Moses? Are you a Miriam? What kind of person are you? What gifts do you have? And how can you use those gifts to make this world a place of justice and freedom for everyone? So with that question, I leave you also with the greeting, Chag Sameach, Happy Passover. And if you'd like, you can stick around and chat with friends for a few minutes.
Happy Passover.
Happy Passover.
Happy Passover. Bye, everybody. Happy Passover.
Chag Sameach.
Happy Passover.
Good seeing you guys.
Happy Passover.
Happy Passover.
Thank you very much. Beautiful service.
Thank you so much.
It's a lot of fun, Rabbi. Thank you.
Oh, it was great.
Thank you for opening the door for Elijah.
Chag Sameach.
You're welcome.
Chag Sameach, Alan.
Chag Sameach, everyone. Happy Passover.
Thank you. It was really important.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
Have a good week.